Hello, friends. This is Scott Monty. Stand by for commentary.
Welcome to the Full Monty, where you'll be exposed to commentary and analysis from the week's digital news. You give us 15 minutes, and we'll save you hours. And now, here's your host, Scott Monty.
Hi, and welcome to the Full Monty, an audio companion to the newsletter of the same name. Each week, I pick one or two pressing issues and inject insight, opinion, maybe a little wit into this 15-minute show that's sure to give you a better sense of what's affecting the industry. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, but I hope it makes you think. This week, a look at how an online PR and customer service crisis for a major airline could have been avoided with a little common sense and emotion. You've probably caught wind of the outrage of the week. Which one, you ask? I know it can be hard to keep track of all of them, but the one in question is the United Airlines Leggings issue. Now, just in case you're not familiar with the situation, here's a brief synopsis. United Airlines barred two teenage girls from boarding a flight on Sunday morning and required a 10-year-old child to change into a dress. This was after a gate agent decided the leggings they were wearing were inappropriate. Thanks to a well-placed social justice activist, that's modern-day terminology for busybody, who live-tweeted the event, that set off waves of anger on social media. Suddenly, netizens began criticizing what they called an intrusive sexist policy. And then, the airline decided to dig in and maintain its support for the gate agent's decision. And you can imagine how well that went over. Well, there are a few things to unpack here that require a little more detail. It wasn't apparent to the bystanders, but it became clear later on that these girls were, quote-unquote, pass riders. That is, they were the recipients of free passes given to United employees to share with family and friends. Under United's and most airlines' rules, there is a strict dress code for pass riders. Now, we can debate the appropriateness of dress codes all day and still not find agreement. As I said, most airlines have a policy in place, and it's to ensure that those representing the airlines are dressed in a respectful manner. Now, this completely misses the point that visually, anyone not wearing an official airline uniform won't be perceived by passengers as representing the airline. They look just like all the other passengers. But United and others really don't seem to think this through to its logical conclusion. So, when United was questioned about their decision to turn away girls for wearing leggings, a very common item of clothing and hardly considered inappropriate in most circles, United then decided that the appropriate response would be to quote policy at individuals who were already clearly worked up. And here's exactly what they said. Quote, United shall have the right to refuse passengers who are not properly clothed via our contract of carriage. End quote. That's when things really started getting testy. The online activist had a significant following on Twitter of nearly 35,000 people. And as she began to engage with the United Twitter handle, the issue was discovered by no fewer than 3 celebrities: Chrissy Teigen, Patricia Arquette, and Sarah Silverman, all of whom are known for their outspoken, no-holds-barred personalities, both offline and online. With some retweets and some choice commentary of their own, things were off and running. Things got so heated that United eventually became a trending topic, and later in the day and throughout the week, the issue spilled over, as it often does, from social media to mainstream media. Blogs like Jezebel picked it up, as did the New York Times. And then eventually the TV show The View commented on it. My colleague Shel Holtz very astutely noted, I read about this on several mainstream media sites, most of which embedded the most savagely funny tweets about the situation. Right or wrong, that is what happens. You may not like it, but your company has to know how to deal with it. And citing policy is almost always a non-starter. End quote. Now, let's be clear on something. This is in no way the same as a true crisis, one where, let's say, a plane crashes. This is more of a minor headache. But it's one that United can barely afford right now, as the company is in the midst of trying to repair a reputation that's been damaged in recent years. United has had to deal with scandals related to the George Washington Bridge closure under New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, with its own decision to create a bare-bones economy class of tickets where passengers can't use overhead bins for luggage, with a CEO who was accused of corruption, and with the famous United Breaks Guitars incident. That's a good one. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. This is a company that can hardly afford to take another blow to its corporate reputation. Or as my colleague Tom Webster put it, United is the Uber of airlines. So in a very short span of time, we have a simple decision made by a gate agent and another decision made by a customer service representative that ended up not only putting United in the crosshairs of activists, but also putting it squarely in the press. And these simple decisions ended up in unleashing a more complex set of issues. Gender issues. The father of these girls was allegedly wearing shorts, and yet he was allowed to board, but the girls were singled out. Some commentators called United's dress policy, and others like it, sexist and subjective. It also became a debate about policy, an antiquated dress code that has no consideration for how people dress and travel in 2017. We also have a lesson in customer service that a by-the-book response might need to incorporate a little more understanding. As we said, this is an ongoing matter of reputation management as well. United was already a damaged brand, and this did them no favors. And then you've got the busybody social justice warriors that as a breed have gotten more active. And they're yet another example of consumer torch and pitchforks rioting against brands. Because the bigger the brand, the worse it must be, right? And finally, this is a part of the cycle of outrage that we see on social media, where it seems to be a blood sport to create a tempest in a teapot, to accuse first and ask questions later, and to lead with emotions over fact. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the world in which we all live. And if you work for a brand, there's no denying it or getting around it. You must find a way to deal with it.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
Get your trivia skills ready for the Naked Truth.
This week's Naked Truth trivia question: how did American Airlines cut their costs by nearly $40,000 in 1987? Answer later in the show. And now page 2. Remember that great online debate a couple of years ago about that infamous dress? Was it white and gold? Or was it blue and black? We all had the same information in front of us, but there was a terrible split of opinion. Well, this United issue became the airline equivalent. People dug in and took stances very clearly on one side or another. On one hand, people recognized that this is a policy, and employees and their children need to abide by it. There is no room for debate. Well, on the other hand, you had people accusing the airline of sexism and of having outdated policies that unfairly targeted females. Now, policy arguments aside, I'd like to point out the one thing that could have prevented this entire spectacle from playing out at the scale that it did. The response of the customer service representative. You see, when someone's angry, the last thing they want to hear is reasons why they're wrong. At a certain point, it isn't about whether their gripe with your company is legitimate. It's about you acknowledging the frustration and anger that they're experiencing. It's about showing empathy. Empathy is defined as the psychological identification with or vicarious experiencing of the feelings, thoughts, or attitudes of another. And to do anything but show empathy is to invalidate what they're going through at the moment. Perfect example is the case of Meow Mix. My colleague Jay Baer related this in a recent speech and in his book, Hug Your Haters. Chris Rund was a customer of Meow Mix who had white rugs in his house. Now, put aside for a moment the horrible judgment in installing white carpeting in your house. Just go with me on this. Chris was annoyed because his cat did what cats do. It threw up. And in doing so, his Meow Mix tainted cat puke stained the carpet. So, Chris wrote to Meow Mix, "Dear Meow Mix, cats throw up. Pretty regularly. I figured you guys would realize this, being cat experts and all. With this in mind, why do you insist on putting dyes in your product that cause ruined carpets, furniture, etc. when Kitty spews her half-digested meow yuck all over? Seriously, my cat doesn't give a shit what your product looks like in the bowl, and neither do I. What would be helpful and appreciated by legions of cat owners, I'm guessing, is if you'd take the worthless dyes out of your product and save us all a lot of frustration and ruined fabrics." Now, this became an opportunity for Meow Mix to take some valuable feedback, and whether or not they actually pass it along to the product development team, it's an opportunity to acknowledge a customer's frustration and thank him for his suggestion. But is that what they did? Oh no. Here's Meow Mix's decidedly inhuman, some might say inhumane, response. "Hi, Chris. All Meow Mix products are made with nutritious quality ingredients that meet the standards and specifications of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, Association of American Feed Control Officials, AAFCO, and the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. If you have further questions, our Consumer Affairs team will be able to help you. You can reach them at 1-877-MEOW-MIX, 877-636-9649, or by visiting www.meowmix.com and clicking the Contact Us link at the bottom of the page." How do you think that turned out for Meow Mix? I'd say it's safe to assume that Chris is buying his cat food from another provider. Because here's the thing. You think your business or product is unique? Maybe to you it is. But to the customer? There's always someone else who can come along and do what you do, who can provide the same kind of product or service you can. Face it, you're a commodity. Airline, car manufacturer, book publisher, restaurant, software provider, pet food maker, music teacher. There are other businesses and individuals that will gladly fill your spot when you decide that being right is more important than taking care of a customer. Remember this. No one ever won an argument with a customer. Yes, the old trope that the customer is always right isn't literally true. They may be wrong about a policy or a fact. But if you chose to take them up on it, you've lost. Just like United decided that Leggings was the hill that they wanted to die on. We live in a divided society right now. White dress, blue dress, Republican, Democrat. It's not a matter of debating the facts anymore. particularly when facts don't seem to matter, especially to those who have already decided on a position, absent facts. We here at Brain Trust are actually developing a white paper on the post-factual age. If this is something that appeals to you, please reach out to me and I'll get you a copy of it. Meanwhile, there's no question that it's futile to argue the facts with someone who's already made up their mind, who's gotten an army of angry keyboardists behind them, and who may accidentally or intentionally trip into the mainstream media. Your best bet is to show some humanity and let them know that you understand why it is that they're upset in the first place. Maybe you can't do anything to change a product formulation or a business policy, and maybe they're not asking you to do that in the moment. Maybe they just want to be heard. This United incident is merely another example of the post-factual world in which we live, where brands are dinged for responding with policies and facts. In reality, they need to show a healthy dose of empathy with a pledge to look into things before responding further. But when you go full-on robot with an online activist and you're a brand whose reputation was already shaky, you've got yourself a Molotov cocktail of social media justice and brand ineptitude. The poem of the week. The big ugly brand is the scourge of the land. The masses may want to debate you. With pitchforks and torches, they arrive on your porches, determined to damage and hate you. When met with a crisis, the finest advice is, listen and be self-aware. Execute flawlessly. Avoid quoting policy. Just try to act like you care. We asked you how American Airlines saved $40,000 in costs in 1987. Well, they did it by eliminating one olive in each salad served in flight. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover on this show, please get in touch at fullmontyshow@scottmonty.com. And if you've enjoyed this series, please consider supporting it by becoming a patron at patreon.com/scottmonty or just pressing that Patreon button right on the fullmontyshow.com. And please, won't you leave us a rating or review on the listening platform of your choice? Be sure to check out other major stories from the March 27th edition of the Full Monty. From the Trusted Media Brands report, the vast majority, 81%, of programmatic digital ad buyers agree that ensuring a brand-safe environment for advertising is a high priority. And an equal proportion feel that in today's fragmented digital landscape, using brand-safe, trusted environments is more important than ever. Spending on native digital display ads will make up more than half of all digital display ad spending in the U.S. this year, growing 36.2% to reach $22 billion. And you can rest assured that the vast majority of that goes to social networks. And finally, latching on to the video-on-demand trend, movie studios are betting consumers will pay a premium to watch new releases at home rather than in theaters. With prices between $25 and $50 per rental, it may be easy for a family to justify this arrangement, particularly when you factor in costs like babysitters and popcorn. Well, that's all for this week. With any luck, your brain is a bit bigger now. Thank you for making me a part of your week and for being exposed to the Full Monty. Until next time, I'm Scott Monty, and I'll see you on the internet.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the Full Monty newsletter and this program at fullmontyshow.com.
Just want to tell you both good luck. We're all counting on you.